MARC records can be overlaid over existing records to merge duplicates when bibliographic records are saved in LEAP. The videos on editing bibliographic records and importing records from remote databases demonstrated the basic steps of merging duplicates. This video will provide an overview of the process of identifying the correct records to merge and how you can compare two records side by side in LEAP. Let's review the deduplication process. At this time, LEAP only allows you to merge duplicates after you press Save. So I'm at the point in which I have finished editing the MARC record. Now it's time to save the record. First, the Check Headings Assistant dialog box opens. It lists headings that do not have an authority record. This can be bypassed, so I'm going to press Continue. Next, the MARC Validation dialog box appears. It displays errors in the MARC tags. If you see any, press Cancel to return to the MARC record and correct the errors before pressing Save again. If there are no errors, the bibliographic record duplicate detection results will appear to display the list of duplicates in the catalog. At the top, you will see a section called Record to Retain. This is the record that you currently have open. If you want to retain a different record, you will need to close this record and open the record that you would like to retain. In the Records to Replace section, you will see one or more records listed that Polaris considers a potential duplicate. If a record is missing from the list, you can press Add Title to search for the record with the Find tool. Records that were saved as provisional records can only be found by searching for the bibliographic records control number. If you imported the record recently, you can find the control number in the import report. You will need to compare the records to replace to the record that will be retained in order to identify if they are true duplicates. First, compare the data in the different columns. The record to retain is called the Skippy John Jones Literacy Bag Class Action. Only one record has the same title. Although duplicate records can have different titles, Polaris may identify a record with a different title because the ISBNs could be in records for different formats, or in a record erroneously. If an ISBN was in a record by mistake, the author will also differ. Next, compare the format column. Polaris included book plus CD, and kit records in the list of records to replace because the records all have the same ISBN as the book that's in the kit record. In most cases, a different format will mean that the records are not duplicates. However, you may need to check some of the records to be sure. You may encounter records that have the wrong type of material or format, like video recording instead of DVD. Next, examine the Reason column. This column lists the reason why Polaris identified the records as potential duplicates. Most of the records just have an ISBN in common. The best match will have more match points in common, like the title in the 245 subfield A and the OCLC number in the 035 subfield A. There are two ways to compare records to make sure they are really duplicates. One is by simply using the Workform Tracker to toggle between two open records. The other is by opening up the record in a second window. First, I'm going to demonstrate using the Workform Tracker. Click on the potential duplicate to open the record. You can access the Workform Tracker by clicking on the three bars in the upper left-hand corner. If you only have two records open, the top record should be the record to retain and the bottom record should be the record to replace. Click on the record to retain and then press Cancel on the bibliographic duplicate detection results to view the record. Next, toggle between the records using the Workform Tracker to compare the data. If the second record is better than the first record, you have the option to close the initial record and choose the best record to retain. When you compare the records, you may notice some discrepancies, like fields that are in a record to replace but aren't in the record to retain. These can include standard numbers like ISBNs or UPCs, contents, summary, local subject headings, and 949 tags. You should copy the fields from the record to replace to the record to retain. If you need to copy data from one record to another, you will benefit from opening the records in separate windows. To do so, copy the URL of the MARC record view. Click on the plus sign to open a new tab. Paste the URL into the address bar of the new tab and press Return. If you right-click on the tab, a menu will open. Click on Move Tab to New Window. Now the MARC records are in separate windows. To arrange the windows side by side, hover the cursor over the square on the upper right-hand side next to the X. A box pops up that allows you to choose how to configure the windows. I would like to look at two windows side by side, so I'll choose the configuration in the upper left side and click on the right rectangle to place one of the windows on the right. The desktop will automatically display all open windows for you to choose from. I'm going to select the MARC record in the other window. You can use the Workform Tracker to toggle one of the windows to a different record. While looking at both records, you can more easily compare the data and decide which fields need to be copied from one record to another before merging them. After editing the record to retain, close the record to replace. If both records are still open in the window, navigate to the record to replace with the Workform Tracker. Then press Close. Now you can save the record to retain. When the bibliographic record duplicate detection results appear, check the box for the record to replace, then press Replace. Now you can close the record. This has been a tutorial on merging duplicate records in LEAP. If you have any questions, contact help@ccslib.org.